Stuart, I have a question.
Yes, Stuart.
Um, how does our conscious choice interplay with the sort of karmic things that play out in our life?
Please, everyone, try not to move. Try to sit still. Um, well, look, every act, every activity, every choice we make is a way of interacting between ourselves and our karma. And if we're all chaotic inside, if we're full of a lot of thinking and tension and emotional stuff, et cetera, understand it interferes with the capacity we have to make conscious choices. It interferes with the capacity we have to communicate with other human beings. In fact, I was just writing about that for one of my tantric things. What comes out of us is like static on a radio. We never communicate fully to other people what we really want to communicate. We never hear fully from other people what they really are trying to communicate to us. We're full of tension, we're full of static. It interferes with us and making conscious choices. Conscious choices will always get one closer to their spiritual enlightenment. Conscious choices will always give us an opportunity to truly grow every day of our lives. But, human beings are so conditioned to spend their time in their heads thinking and daydreaming and with all that conflict and polarity that goes on in the brain, it's almost impossible for them to make conscious choices. So by clearing up all that internal chaos, getting centered, keeping the heart open, the mind quiet, using sexual energy to activate Kundalini, all of that work will give us clarity of choice. We're no longer battling ourselves to make choices in life that can get us closer to our enlightenment, that can help us grow every day. So all of this works together. It's almost impossible to make a conscious choice if we're full of ourselves. If our ego is making the choice, it's going to create enormous amount of tension, which is going to disrupt our karma and get us into a lot of problems in life. If we're choosing from the mind, if we're telling other people how to live, if we're constantly imposing our opinions on other people, this is all a byproduct of very deep tension inside us. And this will keep us and block us from making incredible steps forward in our spiritual development. So we've got to use the craft of inner work, of meditation, to begin to clarify, first of all, our internal life. And as the internal life gets clearer, our external life will get clearer. All of this madness that goes on in the world is a reflection of the madness inside human beings. The people that run countries, that are, politicians, they run them out of a state of their own ego, out of a state of insanity inside themselves. And what do you have in the world? You have insanity, constant conflict. Nobody listens to anybody else. Everybody knows better. And it's only because people are so chaotic in themselves that they just dump that on the world. And people in power dump that on the world. People in like Brazil that want to destroy the Amazon. If they destroy the Amazon, they're going to destroy the world. It's insane, what people want to do. But it's all a byproduct of greed, of money, of the insanity that rules the inner life of people. Now, as I say all the time, I don't expect 8 billion people to get changed overnight. This is God's problem, and it's going to take thousands of lifetimes for the soul of this planet to evolve, to where there's clarity and a lack of chaos. But each and every one of us, we have an opportunity to transform ourselves, to begin to build an inner life that is strong enough to enable us to make conscious choices, enable us to live with compassion, to live with love, to be able to forgive, to be able to make the world a better place because it's a better place inside ourselves. So all of this affects one's karma. And until we work out our karma on this planet, we come back here again and again. The soul is reborn over and over again to learn how to ultimately make conscious choices. I mean, the whole thing is borderline absurdity, but it's the way the human race lives, you know? And it takes lifetimes for people to learn. So there are two elements to this: the clarifying our inner life and the living in the world as a conscious human being. Those two elements work together. They're not separate from each other.
Thank you.
You're welcome, Soren. I mean, a great question, and I talk about it a lot, but it's so important because people think the objective world is going to make them happy, and it never does. The only thing that can make you happy and keep your heart open is you build a system inside that's strong enough to do it, no matter what the hell is going on in the external world. Does anyone else have a question? I mean, I wouldn't blame the craziness in this world on anybody else than the people that live in it. I mean, as I've said many times, you know, the energy of God, Shakti, spirit, it's not positive or negative, it's pure energy. It flows through people and it becomes positive and negative. We transform it into conflict, into positive, into ego, into right and wrong and opinions, and comes this pure energy, comes here to nurture us and to help us continue to build an inner life that is strong enough to ultimately become one with God. And because people are so convoluted inside themselves, they transform it into all this bullshit that goes on in the world. And then they blame the world for the bullshit they're creating. I mean, it's unbelievable, you know, it's really an unbelievable situation. How could God have created this crazy world? And God hasn't created, God is pure energy. There's no positive or negative. You know, it comes into us and we have been conditioned into belief systems and what we racist stuff and prejudice and blah, blah, blah. We have insanity in the world. So people have to change. That is truly our commitment to higher energy. We have to change. We have to build a chakra system, an inner life that is strong enough to absorb the purity of God's energy and allow it to work on us and to help us to continue to grow every day of our life and ultimately to be capable of making conscious decisions. Does anyone else have a question they would like to ask? I mean, it took me a long time to become aware of this and to, even more important, to live with this, to not blaming the world and understanding, Stuart, I have to do my inner work. I have to grow. It doesn't matter what goes on in this world. Because I can't remember, as I've said a million times, one day in my life where the world hasn't been crazy. Not one day. And I'm probably a lot older than most of you. Maybe a few of you are older than me, but most of you, can't remember one day. I mean, I was born in 1942, for God's sake. It was World War II. Has the world ever gotten crazier than World War II? And I was born right into that. I mean, and when I was younger, I used to picket and scream and yell, and I was going to transform the world. And one day I said, Stuart, well, fuck this. How am I going to do God's problem? It's not my problem. My problem is transform Stuart. Before you're going to fix 8 billion people, fix yourself. You know? Does anyone else have a question they would like to ask? I remember years ago, I was in, I won't say where, but I was in prison for a month. And I remember sitting there in this room that was just steel and concrete and a toilet staring me in the face and a bench that was made to sleep on made out of wood. And I said, Stuart, I said, you really have reached the bottom of your life. I said to myself that you have to change. You have to change. You have to learn how to fix yourself inside. And I remember getting out of that place. I just got on my hands and knees and I kissed the earth. And I said, thank you, God. And 3 weeks later, I met Rudy. But I had to make that decision finally. I had to change. It wasn't the external world. And, I could be angry and rebellious. And boy, was I ever angry and rebellious when I was a kid. But it did nothing but make everything worse. I said, I have to change. And as I say, 3 weeks later, I met Rudy. I was ready. I had walked past Rudy's store in Greenwich Village 500 times. I never went in. I used to look in the window occasionally at all the art, and I liked that kind of art, but I never went in. But I changed. I changed. My needs were different, and God took me in. This friend of mine said, it doesn't cost to look. Never forget that. God bless him. Doesn't cost to look. I walked in, and there was Rudy. Oh, my whole life changed. But I was ready. I had reached the bottom. And I was like a raw nerve ending when I was a kid, you know? I mean, really. And I had reached the bottom and I said, no, it's not enough. I said, you wanted to be an actor, you wanted to be a poet, and none of that was enough. I needed to learn something deeper. And 3 weeks later, bingo. Does anyone else have a question? Yes, Lawrence. You have a question or? Does anyone else have a question? I hope this is all clear, you know. I mean, I wasn't born from some lotus leaf in the Bronx, you know. I mean, I wasn't Padmasambhava of the Bronx, you know. I mean, it was years of struggle and finding and learning and growing and ultimately making conscious decisions about where I wanted to invest my life energy and how I want and what I was willing to pay to get it. And even at 25 years old, I was willing to pay any price. I didn't need security. I didn't need some white picket fence surrounding my life to protect me against the world. I needed to find God. And I knew at 25, even when I met Rudy, I would do anything, whatever it took, I will do to get that. And it did, from living in Texas to there, running ashrams and prison programs and being been in prison myself. And, you know, I mean, God bless, airplane crashes. You know, I mean, God bless what it took. Sometimes I began to feel like Ulysses trying to find his way home. Ultimately, for one reason, for the reason you asked that question, Sora, to arrive at a place in myself where I could make conscious choices and realizing that conscious choices had to do with what I have to do in my life to grow spiritually. Does anyone else have a question they would like to ask? Maybe I'm nuts. Yeah, but you know, I think they should take the word normal out of the dictionary because there's no such thing on this planet, you know. Okay, if there are no more questions, then there will be meditation tomorrow evening. God bless you all. As I tell you all, you're probably sick of hearing it, but I'll say it again. You all are my teacher. I come here because I still need to learn to grow. I haven't arrived yet. I'm not going to sit here and play God in front of everybody. I need to work on myself. I need to grow. And every one of you represent an opportunity for me to grow. So God bless you all. And I'm looking forward to seeing you all. There'll be class tomorrow evening.
Good night, Stuart. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Stuart.
Good night.
Thank you, Stuart.